Hello students, my name is Dr. Eric Halford and the subject of this week's lectures is an overview of leadership theories. Now this should be a nice, useful couple of lectures for you, and the purpose of this week is really to try and bring all the different theoretical theories that we've discussed over the past several weeks, bring them all together in one place so you can cement the learning to date and really start to understand how these theories can be, how they work together, which ones complement each other and the interconnections of each of those theories. But also we have missed a couple of theories because it'd be a really long course if we included every single theory in detail, because there are quite a number. So the purpose of these lectures is also just to throw in there the couple that we've missed, just so you have a real broad understanding of the theories that are available to you within your leadership. So as an outcome of this lecture, the students should be able to demonstrate the following. So by the end, guys, I'm really hopeful that you'll have an appreciation of a wide array of leadership theories and styles, but importantly, that you'll be able to start to demonstrate the understanding of the links between the various theories. And as I always describe it, leadership is a bit of a toolbox, it's a skill. So the key here is being able to pick up and put down the various leadership styles or behaviours that you think are appropriate at the time. And being able to understand those links, you'll also be able to appreciate the strengths and weaknesses of the theories outlined. But most importantly here is how applicable they are in various leadership roles. So most importantly here, why do we need leaders? That has got to be the absolute fundamental question here. So for me, it's all about discretionary effort of our employees. So apologies if you've heard this before, but it's an absolute fundamental of leadership, which is why I've put it right at the beginning of this lecture. So we'll just play this short video to remind us what discretionary effort is.
I've become very fascinated with this idea of discretionary effort. That is, how do we truly unlock the potential of our people so that they're willing to go above and beyond to unlock their discretionary effort to either help others or to help customers? Now, in today's world, if you go into a store, a grocery store, if you go check in for a flight, if you go to a bank, pretty much any retail transaction that you have, there's not a lot of differentiation that you can expect. I mean, if you go to a grocery store, it doesn't matter which one you go to, the experience is pretty much the same. The same thing when you go check in for a flight, the same thing when you go to a bank or pretty much any other establishment. So how is it, in that type of a world, that some organizations are consistently able to go above and beyond to create truly amazing customer experiences? What I find is that inside of those organizations, the company takes care of its people. It invests in the experience of its employees. When you invest in the experience of your people, which I define as a combination of culture, technology, and physical space, you unlock the employee's discretionary effort that allows them to go above and beyond to help customers, to help prospects, and even to help each other. And I think that's the type of an organization we should all be striving to create, one that is truly able to unlock the potential of our people. And when you treat your people well, when your employees feel safe, that is when discretionary effort is unlocked. That is when your employees are going to go above and beyond whatever is expected of them to contribute more to the organization, to the employees, and to the customers. So if you really want to have a significant impact, not just on what happens inside your company, but outside of your company, start by investing in your people and unlock their discretionary effort.
Nice little opener there, guys, just to set the tone. So that's why we need leaders, really. We need to invest in our people to get the best out of them so they can deliver the best possible service to the communities and victims that we serve. So for us, it's really encapsulated in this single chart, which you've seen before, but I make no apologies for this. So discretionary effort is really about getting people from below here, where some people do languish, particularly if they've got performance issues, where they really aren't delivering the level of standards that we expect of them. Now, this is where 75 to 80% of people function That just enough level where they stay out of the red, but they come home, go to work, come home, do a job, absolutely no issues with them. But that's where most people function. So by focusing on our people and doing more for them, the trick here is we can move them closer to here and get a lot more out of them. And in doing so, they'll be happier and will deliver a more effective service. So why do we need leaders? This is why. So you'll do well to remember this. So let's just recap now. Trait theory. Leaders are born, not made. Now, by now, you should have been able to form your own opinion on this. And I'm very much of the mindset that leaders can be made. Other people might be more naturally inclined to some of the leadership characteristics, particularly extroversion or emotional intelligence. But as we've shown, there is a lot of skills we can teach each other to become more effective leaders. Now, the early studies by Stoddel on trait theory focused on the big five: capacity, achievement, responsibilities, participation, and status. So capacity was intelligence and intellect and ability to take on multiple tasks and, as we call it, spinning plates, juggling balls, however you want to describe it. Achievement was very much around sporting, academic, other sorts of achievements. And then responsibilities were very much focused on people who had a sense of responsibility and understood their role in an organisation or a position. But also, the big five traits were included participation, which was that feeling of being some part of something bigger. But also status. A lot of the early studies focused on status of people, whether that be socio-economic, political, financial, or within the organisations in question. Now, early on, a lot of people had placed a lot of weight on traits, and the emphasis here was very much around people thinking they could be born if you possess those traits. But as we know now, this was quite a simplistic theory, and it evolved significantly since then as we started to understand that those traits were more a byproduct of being in a leadership position, as opposed to they are what gave that person the leadership position, possibly with the exception of intelligence and emotional intelligence. So then we moved on to the contingency theories. Now, this is where leadership theory started to get a little bit more evolved and a little bit more complex. So Fiedler's contingency theory, commonly known as LPC, which refers to the least preferred co-worker scale, which was a system developed by Fiedler to assess the least preferred co-worker that an individual leader would seek to work with. And in doing so, what that enables Fiedler to identify was that by choosing that person, they were able to actually rate the leader on their views and perspectives of the individual, as opposed to their leadership behaviours or characteristics or traits, as trait theory went before it. Now, the more highly rated someone is as the least preferred co-worker, this indicates a more relationship orientated leader is likely to be. Now, this is for quite a simple reason. So imagine you're thinking about the person you least prefer to work with, yet you still score them very highly. What that would indicate is that you're a person who always sees the best in people, and because of that, you are more inclined to be good at relationship focused tasks. Whereas the lower you rate someone as the least preferred co-worker, what that would suggest is you are less inclined to give people the benefit of the doubt, and as a result you are less relationship orientated, and you are likely to be better at more task-based functions. And there is a moderate worker in there as well. So this is what it ultimately came down to, defining the most effective styles and putting them on a scale. And what Fiedler was able to do was identify, contrary to his original hypothesis, was that it wasn't people with relationship skills who were actually the most successful leaders in the most number of tasks. It was actually people with task-orientated leadership skills that were the best. And this is because of the combination of member relationships, task structure, and position of power. And Fiedler was able to create this scale which goes from 1 to 8 and describes on that the different levels of task orientated or relationship orientated leader and which is likely to be more successful. So, for instance, a person who scores a low LPC and is likely to be a task orientated leader would be very good in the first three, number 1, number 2, and 3, first situation. So, in a position where, for instance, if we look at number 1, where leader and member relationships is good, the structure of the task is high, so there are strong policies and processes in place, and the leader's positional power is also strong. So because of those 3 elements, you can adopt a very task-orientated approach and are more likely to be successful. And as we move on to the other side and look at those examples, if you look at that probably covers 6, 7, and 8. So again, a task-orientated leader is more likely to be successful in a situation where the relationship between the leader and their followers is fairly poor and isn't great, and even where the task structure is low, so there aren't many policies, governance, or meetings in place and processes to get the job done, but also where the leader position power is weak. And the reason why a task-orientated leader is more likely to be successful in there is because their approach to allocating tasks and delivering short-term goals is more effective in those situations. And then what we see here in the middle is those people who have a high least preferred co-worker scale are more relationship orientated, and as a result, really, they tend to perform best in those situations where leader-member relationships are good, and it's only a very small section in the middle, really. And that's a whistle-stop tour of Fiedler's least preferred co-worker study. Now, what starts to become clear after Fiedler's contingency theory is that situational theories start to become more popular, and they can be very confusing in differentiating one from the other. So here's a really short video. Again, I make no apologies if you've seen this before. Listen to it again. Don't fast forward it, because repetition retains knowledge and you'll understand it more the second time than you did the first time. So make sure you stay tuned here, guys.
Hi folks, this is Dr. Adams, and this week you're going to be studying situational leadership theory and you're going to be studying contingency theory. And I wanted to talk to you about the two because even though the two might seem similar, they're really quite different. So first of all, situational leadership theory. The thrust of this particular theory is the fact that leaders can adjust their leadership style depending on the readiness level of their followers. You have the ability as a leader to adjust to where your followers are in their development. So, an example. Let's say, for instance, that you have a follower that is at readiness level 1. This means that they are unwilling and they don't have the ability. They're brand new. So the leadership style that you would use in this situation is an S1. And S1 is more of a telling style. You're going to tell them how to do the job. You are going to tell them when the job needs to get done. You are going to go back and check and make sure that the job was done the way you needed it done. It is very autocratic. Now, let's say, for instance, that this same follower is at a readiness level 2. Well, this means that they are very willing, but they don't really have the abilities yet. And so the style of leadership that you would exhibit or manifest is more of a coaching style or a selling style. And what you're going to do, it's kind of like if you've ever coached Little League Baseball or rec basketball with little kids, and they're so excited, and they want to play, they want to shoot, they want to do all the things, but they don't really have the skills. Well, that is a level 2. But the significance, and Nordhaus goes into all the various different leadership styles or manifestations. But the importance that Hersey and Blanchard were bringing out in this leadership theory is that the leaders have the ability to adjust their leadership style to suit or fit the readiness level of the followers. Now, contrast that to contingency theory. And in contingency theory, it's basically what the name says, that effective leadership is contingent on having the right leader in the right situation. And the two have to be paired up in order for you to have effective leadership. The reason that's important is because in this theory, they believe that leadership is stagnant. You are who you are. You lead in a particular way. And because you lead in a particular way, then you have to match the way you lead to a situation that is conducive to that style of leadership in order for there to be success. Now that's the two styles. The one, leadership, situational leadership theory says the leader can adjust their style of leadership, whereas in contingency leadership theory, it says the leader can adjust their style. And so it's two different approaches. And so as you get into your reading and your study and your dialogue, hopefully this will be a help to you.
So there you go. That's a bit of a short video just to explain the difference of the two. And the key takeaway from this is that situational theories focuses on how the leader adopts to the level of the follower. Is it described there? The follower's readiness. What is the level of their capability? And dependent on where that capability fits on a scale, then dictates how the leader behaves with that person and what type of relationship they form. Now, contingency theory is very much right leader, right situation. What this theory proposes that people have a very specific set of skills and that they use those in certain situations. So to stand the greatest chance of success, place a leader with the right skills in the right role. So if you think of those two takeaways there, then you'll really understand the difference between situational theories and contingency theory. So we'll just break down into another little video here, just so you don't have to listen to me repeatedly, what situational theories really focus on.
The situational theory of leadership, developed by Hersey and Blanchard, is an interesting extension of the leadership grid. Let's take a look. The situational theory focuses on the characteristics of followers as the most important element of the situation and consequently of determining effective leadership behavior. The point of Hersey and Blanchard's theory is that subordinates vary in readiness level. For example, people low in task readiness because of little ability or training or insecurity need a different leadership style than those who are high in readiness and have good ability, skills, confidence, and a willingness to work. According to the situational leadership theory, a leader can adapt one of four leadership styles, based on a combination of relationship, that is concern for people, and task, a concern for production, types of behavior. The appropriate style depends on the readiness level of followers. The four styles are telling, selling, participating, and delegating. The telling style is a very directive approach that reflects high concern for tasks and a low concern for people and relationships. The leader provides detailed objectives and explicit instructions about how tasks should be accomplished. The selling style is based on a high concern for both relationships and tasks. With this approach, the leader provides task instruction and personal support, explains decisions, and gives followers a chance to ask questions and gain clarity about work tasks. The participating style is characterized by high relationship and low task behavior. The leader encourages participation, consults with followers, and facilitates decision-making.
The fourth style, the delegating style, reflects a low concern for both tasks and relationships. The leader provides little direction or support because complete responsibility for decisions and their implementation is turned over to followers. The appropriate style depends on the readiness level of followers, from low readiness to high follower readiness. Let's take a look. The essence of Hershey and Blanchard's situational theory is for the leader to diagnose a follower's readiness and select a style that's appropriate for the readiness level, such as the follower's degree of education and skills, experience, self-confidence, and work abilities. When one or more followers exhibit very low levels of readiness, the leader has to use the telling style, telling followers exactly what to do, directing them on how to do it, and specifying timelines. A selling leadership style works well when followers lack some skills or experience for the job but demonstrate competence, ability, and a willingness to learn. With a selling style, the leader gives some direction but also explains decisions and clarifies tasks for followers rather than merely instructing how tasks should be performed. The participating style can be effective when followers have the necessary education, skills, and experience, but might be insecure in their abilities and need some encouragement from the leader. The leader can guide followers' development and act as a resource for advice and assistance. A delegating style of leadership can be effectively used when followers have very high levels of ability, experience, confidence, and a willingness to accept responsibility for their own behavior. The leader provides a general goal and sufficient authority to do the tasks as followers see fit. Highly educated professionals, such as lawyers, college professors, and social workers, would typically fall into this category. There are followers in almost every organization who demonstrate this very high level of readiness. In today's very diverse workplace, with people of widely different ages and readiness levels working side by side, many leaders find themselves to be using multiple styles. Hershey and Blanchard's contingency model focuses only on the characteristics of followers, not the larger situation. The leader should evaluate subordinates and adapt whichever style is needed.
So there we have it, situational theory, particularly the Hershey and Blanchard one, focusing on very much the readiness of the followers there, and it talked about the various different levels. So it's good if you can learn what those different levels are, because then you can start to see those in the people who work for you, and then you can work out whether they need a telling approach, selling approach, whether you can trust them enough to delegate with them, and then you can start to really change the leadership styles and make them very bespoke for those individuals. Now, the next one we're just going to look over was the path goal theory. Now, this is best explained with a quick diagram. So what the path goal theory really focuses on is understanding what the obstacles are for performance, because what the theory suggests is that your workers and followers intrinsically are slightly more motivated than some of the other theories would support, and that they fundamentally they want to achieve good things, but what stops them is that obstacles get placed in their way. And quite often this is the case. It might be technological, it could be emotional, it could be relationship, it could be culture, it could be any number of things. But the key to path goal theory is you learning how to remove those obstacles, and that's where your leadership intervention comes in. Because if you can put the correct leadership intervention in place, you can really understand what's needed to move the blocker, and then as a result you stand a higher likelihood of achieving high performance. Now, understanding what that blocker is an art form in itself, and then selecting the correct intervention is also an art form. So this is simplistic but not always easy to put into practice, and does take quite a lot of experience as a leader. But by having a broader understanding of the theories which we're giving you today, you can start understanding the concept of path goal theory, but also a little bit about what type of interventions can be put in place to make path goal theory, a successful tool for you in your leadership toolbox. So there are some specific things which could be considered as blockers for you, and what these really function is there's 3 different elements with the theory would suggest. There are those personal ones, environmental ones, and structural ones. So personal, as I've described here, need for connection, desire for control, need for stability, or lack of ability. So those personal elements which could stop someone really being as productive and successful as they could be. But as I've described, those environmental ones, what is the workplace like? Do they have the correct technology and so on? And then in order to remove those, there is a couple of ways the theory would suggest you could do it. We could give directions if that's lacking. They might not really understand the goal, and that could be the blocker. They might need emotional support. We can do that. They may need some coaching or mentoring or a more participative approach. They may simply be lacking motivation and inspiration, in which case we can put some rewards and recognitions in place and make it achievement orientated. So what is the intervention you can put in place? And then as a result, you can always seek to provide some clear goals, clear path by removing the obstacles and providing support. But those 4 things at the end are really key for you guys. Always make sure you seek to put in place clear goals, a clear path of how you get to those goals, and your key job there, remove the obstacles. So that's a broad description of how you can implement the model. So it's not difficult to comprehend, but as I say, it is quite tricky to understand what sort of approach you need to be able to be successful, whether you need directive, supportive, participative, or achievement orientated. Now here's another situational theory. Now this is quite similar to one of the previous situational theories, which talks about follower readiness. Now this talks about in-group and out-group. So leader-member exchange, or as it's commonly referred to as LMX, leader-member exchange, it focuses on the relationship between the leader and the followers, but not in a good way, I would suggest. So you've probably worked in a workplace like this or seen this operate, where there are groups of people who are favourites of the follower, and there are groups of people who are not favoured by the follower. So these are the in-group and the out-group. And what tends to happen with the in-group is they get more trust placed in them. They have a better relationship with the leader. They might have more productive interactions. They might get better work. They might have increased recognition or prospects. Lots of positive things tend to happen to people who are in the in-group. And so, unfortunately, sometimes that isn't in contrast to what their capability or expertise may be. They may not be a particularly effective member of staff, but you need to understand this, because it can have quite a negative impact on culture in an organisation. So sometimes that in-group really just comes down to personal relationships with the leader. And you will see this a lot in hierarchical organisations like the police and the military. And this is, although this is a theory, there is a lot of research that backs this up. And it's important for you to understand this purely from the perspective of this can have a really negative impact on your people, especially if they are part of the out-group. Because the key difference here is with other situational theories is that the other situational theories put a responsibility on the leader to actively do something about it, to make that person in the out-group more successful and productive. So just remember with this does happen in the workplace. So it's your responsibility to try and avoid people falling into that out-group. So here's a brief video on the practicalities of this.
The LPC theory, the path goal theory, and Vroom's decision tree approach together redirect the study of leadership. Not surprising then, other situational theories have been developed. Moreover, there continues to be changes and refinements to the original situational models. Let's take a look at the Leader-Member Exchange model. The Leader-Member Exchange model, or LMX, of leadership stresses the importance of variable relationships between supervisors and each of their subordinates. Each supervisor-subordinate pair is referred to as a vertical dyad. The model differs from earlier approaches in that it focuses on the different relationships leaders often establish between subordinates. This figure shows the basic concepts of the Leader-Member Exchange theory. The model suggests that supervisors establish a special relationship with a small number of trusted subordinates referred to as the in-group. The in-group often receives special duties requiring more responsibility and autonomy. They also receive special privilege, such as more discretion about work schedules. Members of the in-group are also likely to be privy to sensitive information and are likely in the know about upcoming events before others. They may also receive more rewards and generally stronger support from the leader. Subordinates who are not part of this group are called out-group because they receive less of the supervisor's time and attention. Members of the out-group are likely to be assigned the more mundane tasks of the group, and they might not be in the loop insofar as information that's being shared. They may also receive fewer rewards and overall weaker support from the leader. Note that the figure of the leader has a dyadic, a one-to-one relationship with each of the 5 subordinates. Early in his or her interaction with given subordinates, the supervisor initiates either an in-group or out-of-group relationship. It's not clear how the leader selects members of the in-group, but the decision may be based on personal compatibility and the subordinate's competence. Research has confirmed the existence of in-groups and out-groups. In addition, studies generally have found that in-group members tend to have higher levels of performance and satisfaction than out-group members.
So I hope after that brief video you can understand both the positives and negatives of leader-member exchange. It's really good if you're in the in-group. It can be quite negative for the staff members or people if you're in the out-group. So just be really mindful of that one in your future leadership roles. Now, the next type of leadership theory I want to just discuss with you is followership theory. Now, this theory really is a situational theory that focuses on the level of, like previous theory, Hershey and Blanchard's theory, situational theory around readiness. This one tries to articulate that followers fall into very specific types of pockets. So there are, and these are on a scale from passive to active, and those that are independent critical thinkers and dependent uncritical thinkers. Now, what the theory describes is that those who are, look at that top right of the box, an effective follower, they are the people who have the highest level of independence, have the greatest level of critical thinking, and are very active in their behavior. So they are, for instance, your star players, those people who are in the effective follower camp. Now, look at it from the other perspective, and you have the passive followers. Now, these are very dependent and do not think critically, and that their behavior as described is very passive. These are people who are likely to have a very low level of discretionary effort. So it's your responsibility to try and move them from being a passive follower to an effective follower. Now, an alienated follower. Now, these can often be a tricky type of subordinate or follower to manage. And the reason is because they are, again, independent, critical thinkers. These are usually bright individuals. At some point, they may have been an effective follower. But because of circumstance, for instance, maybe they were passed over for promotion, maybe they felt they were treated badly, or they went through a bad time because of some sort of troubles in their own personal life and the performance dipped. For whatever reason, they've now ended up in a position where they are quite anti-organisation. They may speak openly negatively about the organisation. They may undermine what the leader says by negative comments and trying to to destabilize the culture. So you need to be mindful of those people, and they are quite tricky to manage. But I think with the right time and attention, they can be brought back on side into that effective follower camp. But the trick for us as leaders here is to understand who these people are, and you can just simple observation will help you achieve that. And then once you observe which sort of box they are in, you can watch them a little bit more and understand what type of leadership approach you need to take. So, whereas different to some of the other theories, what this leadership theory suggests, because it's a followership one, is that the type of follower, similar to readiness, the type of follower, what the behaviors and characteristics are, that dictates the leadership approach. So this is more around personality, whereas the other situational theory was more around capability. So it talked about readiness. What is the readiness level of that capability? So it talked about their wellness to fit the job role, their experience, their ability, skill set based characteristics. The followership style is more around the personality traits of that individual. So it focuses on different things about the follower, but the concept is the same, that the situational leadership adapts to the follower. Now, this gentleman, Chalev, the model I've just shown you there isn't his model. His model is very similar to it, but he talks about, if you imagine the effective follower, he talks about somebody who is a partner. Now, what he describes is how they are extremely courageous individuals, and to be an effective follower or a partner, there are certain courageous behaviors you need to aspire for. And I would try and encourage these as standards and behaviors within all of the people you lead. So really interesting little video this for you.
In courageous followership, followers don't serve leaders. Rather, followers and leaders mutually serve a common purpose. They're there to serve a mission that's in public service is mandated, and they do so within a framework of certain shared values. The values don't necessarily have to be completely shared, but a certain overlap of shared values. That's the basic model. In the real world, it gets much more complex than that, because there are many leaders, they bring divergent values, there are many followers who are seeking to influence each leader, each from a somewhat different perspective, and we get one other factor here, which is the factor of self-interest. All individuals bring self-interest to the relationship. This isn't bad, it's human nature, as long as the self-interest doesn't override or eclipse the common purpose. As long as it's the common purpose, the mission, which organizes our priorities, then self-interest is not only legitimate, but it's important for you to pay attention to get some sense of what is the self-interest of the leaders you are working with and trying to influence. Because even when there are policy divergence, if you understand the self-interest, you can often frame what you're saying in a way that the leader recognizes you do understand their interest, you are covering their back, and you're presenting legitimate ideas that serve the common purpose. You also, of course, have your own self-interest, and that self-interest is interesting in terms of followership, because we tend to conceive of our self-interest in terms of, naturally, survival, and we are leery of taking risks that threaten our career path within the relationship. Part of my observation is that we sometimes exaggerate internally in our own minds the extent of the risk, and that oftentimes having respectful but candid conversations do not inherently bring risk. Sometimes, in fact, they bring reward. Sometimes they're what creates an authentic relationship with a leader of mutual respect. So with that framework in mind, bear in mind two things about leadership. These are two aspects of the dynamics of leadership that are going to become important in terms of how you follow. The first is staying cognizant of the fact that as leaders rise in an organization, the visibility and pressures on them significantly increase. These are some of the pressures your senior leadership is under. You may not get called to the White House. They do. You may not sit in front of the congressional committee. They do. You may not have to answer the press questions. They do. How do you help them manage those pressures so that they come out whole, they come out with their reputations intact, can go a long way to establishing the kind of relationship we all aspire to, so that we are players, we can influence, at least at times, the thinking and decisions of leadership. So that's point one. Point two is that all leaders are flawed. Why can I say that all leaders are flawed? Because we're human. All humans are flawed. So all leaders are flawed, all followers are flawed. When I'm a leader over a certain small group, I will sometimes make mistakes. Those mistakes will tend to have tactical ramifications. I have to then take responsibility for my mistakes and remedy them. When you get very senior, those flaws magnify, and the mistakes you make tend to have strategic consequences. So therefore, it becomes more important to, if I'm smart, to surround myself with people who are candid enough, smart enough, expert enough, skilled enough to help me reduce the number of serious mistakes I make. And from a followership perspective, how do I become that person that helps the leader avoid those mistakes?
So a really vital video there, particularly in the police service where we have quite a hierarchical organisation. It's very difficult to have those authentic conversations, especially upwards with superior officers. And that takes courage, but when we're all trying to go after the same goal, which is protecting people, it's really key that we're brave enough to be that candid with them. So just on that note there, let's take a break now. We'll come back to lecture 2 and we'll discuss a few more theories in this overview of leadership theories catch-all. Thank you.